Earth is in the midst of its sixth mass extinction. Somewhere between 30 and 159 species disappear every day. This is thanks largely to humans, and more than 300 types of mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians have died since 1500s. These rates do not bode well for the future of life on our planet. But what if the extinction wasn't permanent? What if we could resurrect some of the species we've lost? For decades, the notion of de-extinction hovered on the scientific fringes, but new advances in genetic engineering, especially in the CRISPR-Cas9 revolution, which was developed by Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, have researchers believing that it's time to start thinking seriously about which animals we might be able to bring back and which ones would do the most good for the ecosystems they left behind. Indeed, earlier this month, ecologists at the University of California, Santa Barbara published guidelines for how to choose which species to revive if we want to do the most good for the planet's ecosystems. Hi, my name's Rishi Gaduri, and I will be using Should We Bring Back Extinct Animals from the Dead, written by David Shuntz for Science Mag, as the primary source throughout this video essay.
Scientists discuss three primary ways to reverse extinction. The first method, known as backbreeding, is locating current species that share features with extinct species. Scientists would then selectively breed these creatures in an attempt to recreate a form that is more closely related to the extinct animal, a process that is currently happening for certain extinct species, such as aurochs. Although this isn't a complete de-extinction, it may nevertheless allow us to fill in missing ecological services. For example, in the case of mammoths, scientists may attempt mating Asian elephants with thicker body hair than typical. Cloning is the second alternative. Scientists would remove the nucleus from a preserved cell from a recently extinct species, preferably before the last of its type perished. They would then implant the egg into a surrogate host by swapping the nucleus into an egg cell from the animal's closest living cousin. Researchers achieved this in 2007 when an ordinary goat gave birth to a Pyrenean ibex, which is an extinct species. However, due to hereditary lung issues, the child barely lived for 7 minutes. Cloning may one day allow us to create genetically identical clones of ancient species, but will be limited to animals that died lately and have well-preserved cells with complete nuclei. The mammoth and the ice passenger pigeon may never be cloned. The newest option is genetic engineering. This is where the article comes in. Here, researchers would line up the genome of an extinct animal with that of its closest living relative. They would then use CRISPR and other gene editing tools to swap the relevant genes from the extinct animal into the living species and implant the hybrid genome into a surrogate, or grow it in an artificial womb. This approach doesn't produce genetically identical copies of extinct animals, but rather modern versions of an animal engineered to look and behave like its extinct relatives. This is the technology being used by the mammoth and passenger pigeon groups. This de-extinction effort relates to genetics through its use of latest genetic engineering to change pre-existing animals' phenotypes to that of extinct animals using the new CRISPR. Every animal in an ecosystem has a function. Bats eat insects, fish clean algae from coral, graziers spread nutrient-rich dung across habitats. Some functions are redundant, shared among multiple different species, but others are fulfilled by just the one or two species. Both the passenger pigeon and woolly mammoth, which are being developed by the new CRISPR revolution, were functionally unique species, and when they went extinct, their habitats changed dramatically. Harvard University's George Church, the lead researcher working to de-extinct the mammoth, says that bringing back the giants could help convert the Arctic tundra back to the grasslands that existed during the last ice age. He points to research that shows the mammoths and other large herbivores trampling across the ancient Arctic ecosystem helped maintain the grassland by knocking down trees and spreading grass seeds in their dung. When the large herbivores disappeared, the ecosystem transitioned to today's mossy tundra and taiga that is beginning to melt and release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Reviving the mammoth, the church says, could help slow climate change by shifting the landscape back towards the grasslands. This is a direct quote. There's twice as much carbon at the risk in the tundra and in all faucets in the world put together. Now, onto the carrier pigeon. Likewise, the passenger pigeons, whose numbers are estimated to have reached nearly 5 billion at the start of the 19th century, played a dramatic role in shaping the forests they inhabited. Their numbers were so great and their droppings so prevalent and flammable that they destroyed trees and increased forest fires. After their extinction, these healthy natural disturbances ceased. White oaks lost their primary mode of seed dispersal, i.e. via bird droppings, and the forests have never been the same. The passenger pigeon is a very important ecological species for the habitat that we want to restore, says Novak. De-extinction supporters say we have a moral obligation to bring back some extinct animals. They point out that humans are directly responsible for the extinction of many species. For example, the passenger pigeon, Steller sea cow, and the dodo all disappeared because hunting, habitat destruction, and disease have been caused by humans. Supporters also see de-extinction as a way of increasing biodiversity. This could benefit ecosystems. For example, large grazing herbivores like woolly mammoths could improve soil quality, as said in the last transition. They could turn barren tracts of Siberian tundra back into rich grassland. Finally, research on de-extinction could lead ways of saving many other endangered species. Now, what problems could this cause? De-extinction opponents argue that it could take resources away from the conservation efforts. This would put even more species at risk of extinction. Also, reintroduced species could have a hard time surviving in the wild. Many of their old habitats are gone. They would lack defense mechanisms to protect from today's modern predator, and their immune systems might not be equipped to deal with the new pathogens. Once infected, they could spread diseases to other species of animals, or even us. What is the ideal candidate for de-extinction? It may sound strange to suggest, but one of the best prospects for extinction might be an animal that is still living. Only just. One of two female northern white rhinos are living on the globe, both of whom spend their days at Kenya Old Pajita Conservancy. They are, however, too elderly, too sick, and too related to breed naturally. So, the northern white rhino is a phantom of a wonderful animal that once pampered the varied African grasslands on which so many other species rely. It's considered a de-extinction act if it's saved. It's far simpler to bring an animal back from the brink of extinction in the recent past than it is in the distant past for a variety of reasons. But it's still simpler to concentrate on those who are still with us. A de-extinction project is currently underway for the northern white rhino. Could we resurrect the dinosaurs? Unfortunately, a real-life Jurassic Park is improbable and most likely out of the question. There are limitations which species can undergo de-extinction. First of all, scientists need to have a source of the animal's DNA. Sometimes this can be preserved by museum specimens or from cells that have been collected from live animals and frozen away, and sometimes it can come from fossils, but as we know, DNA disintegrates over time, and these fossils are normally 65 million years old, so their DNA is lost forever. And if you're thinking about the dodo, who's still technically a dinosaur, but only died a few hundred years ago, we still can't get to their DNA either, as they died in a climate too hot for it to preserve their DNA. How do de-extinction animals fare in the wild? When it comes to releasing the animals, all we can do is study their previous ecology and send them into the most suitable environment available. We'll then need to monitor them carefully. It's fine to know why a species went extinct first time round, to make sure it doesn't happen again. With each successive rewilding attempt, we'll learn more about maximizing the animal's chance of survival. This basically means that although the first trial run of animals won't have the best of luck, as we get along in future periods, they should have a better success rate when it comes to surviving and, I guess, reproducing in the wild. Thank you. My name is Rishi Gaduri, and you can find the sources used for this article and any other articles we used in the making of this video essay in the description below. Thank you.